The sharp slam of car doors shattered my ranch's peaceful morning. I looked up from my coffee to see a minivan parked just outside my private gate. For strangers were unloading paddleboards and coolers like they just pulled into their own lake house. They strolled right past my private property sign, chatting excitedly about their lake day. I set my mug down and walked toward them. "Excuse me," I called out. "This is private property. The lake isn't open to the public." A woman in designer sunglasses turned, frowning. "But we booked this online. Paid $75 for the day. Look." She held out her phone, showing me a booking confirmation for Peaceful Waters Lake access. My stomach sank. That was my lake, and I had never authorized any kind of booking system. "Where exactly did you book this?" I asked, working to keep my voice calm. She scrolled through her phone to the Riverside Estates HOA community page. The listing called it a new amenity for residents and guests. Riverside Estates, course. And I knew exactly who was behind it. Let me back up. My name's David Thornton, and for the last 15 years I've owned a 100-acre ranch, including a pristine 20-acre lake I've kept private and protected. The property sits just outside the Riverside Estates HOA, close enough to share a border, far enough that I thought I'd escape their rules. Lately I've learned otherwise. 6 months ago, Riverside got a new HOA president, Patricia Hartwell, though most folks just called her Karen, and not affectionately. Early 50s, immaculately dressed, with the charm of a drill sergeant crossed with a used car salesman. From the moment she took office, she had her eye on my land. It started small. Little comments at community meetings I attended as a courtesy to neighbors. "Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could expand our amenities?" she'd say, locking eyes with me. That beautiful lake, just sitting there, enjoyed by the community. I declined every time. Politely. Firmly. That lake is my sanctuary. A haven for native fish species I've cultivated, and a nesting ground for local waterfowl. But Patricia didn't hear no. She heard try harder. First came official-looking letters from the HOA suggesting supervised community events on my lake. Then came the unannounced visits, where she'd arrive with committee members to pitch the idea again. I refused. Every time. Listing my lake online without permission, though. This was a whole new level. After sending the bewildered family away with apologies and a promise to sort it out, I went straight to my computer. There it was on the Riverside Estates website, a glossy listing complete with roadside photos of my lake, pricing packages, and glowing fake reviews. It even claimed this amenity was part of a partnership between the HOA and local landowners. The contact: Patricia Hartwell. I printed every page and called my lawyer, Janet Morrison. "She's charging people to access your private property." Janet's tone was sharp. "David, that's textbook fraud, trespassing, and about 5 other violations I can think of right now. What do you recommend?" "Yes. Cease and desist, press charges, sue for damages, pick one. But give me a little time to dig. With people like this, sometimes the best move is strategic." Over the next week I documented everything. More families arrived, booking confirmations in hand. I turned them away politely, taking down their information as potential witnesses. I installed security cameras to catch trespassers in the act. Meanwhile, Patricia doubled down, emailing me to say I was being selfish and hurting property values by keeping the lake to myself. Then Janet called with news. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "The Miller's property, the 5-acre lot that borders your land and Patricia's house, just hit the market. They're divorcing and need a quick sale." The Miller's lot was key. It sat between Patricia's backyard and the only decent access point to my lake from the Riverside side. Whoever owned it could control all neighborhood access to the water. "What are you thinking?" I asked, though I already knew. "I'm thinking," Janet said, "that sometimes the best defense is a good offense. I've got a friend, real estate attorney, who specializes in discrete purchases through shell LLCs. We didn't waste time. I formed Pine Valley Investments and put in an all-cash offer on the Miller property, $20,000 over asking. In this market they jumped at it. 2 weeks later the sale closed. Patricia Hartwell had no idea who the new owner was. The morning after closing, a construction crew rolled up at 7 a.m. sharp. Their job? Build an 8-foot privacy fence along the entire border between the Miller property and Patricia's land. It was fully legal, up to code, and completely cut off her view, and her only easy access to my lake. Trouble arrived by noon. Karen's silver luxury SUV came screaming to a halt in front of the construction site. She emerged in yoga pants, a storm in designer sunglasses, face flushed with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded at the foreman. "You can't put a fence here. This blocks lake access." Roberto, the foreman, had the calm patience of a man who'd seen it all before. "We're following the property owner's instructions, ma'am. Everything's permitted and legal. Who owns this property? I demand to speak with them immediately. You'd have to contact Pine Valley Investments. Ma'am, I just build fences." From my porch, coffee in hand, I watched the whole scene play out on my security camera feed. The next few hours were pure entertainment. Karen made at least 15 phone calls, getting more agitated each time. She tried the county recorder's office, the listing agent, even called the police. The officers politely told her a property owner can fence their own land. By that evening she tracked down my LLC's registered agent, Janet, my lawyer, and left a voicemail masterpiece of entitled outrage. "I know this is David Thornton's doing. This is harassment. That fence is blocking established community lake access. We'll sue. I'll have him arrested. The entire HOA board will hear about this." Janet called me later, laughing. "Want me to respond?" "Not yet," I said. "Let's see what her next move is." I didn't have to wait long. Saturday morning, 12 families arrived for their Lake Day reservations, only to find a locked gate and a brand new fence. Karen had to greet them herself, refunding their money out of her own pocket and babbling increasingly desperate excuses. The real fireworks came Monday morning. An official HOA notice landed in my mailbox demanding I remove the fence and cease interfering with community lake access. They'd called an emergency board meeting for Wednesday evening. Perfect. The community center was packed Wednesday night. Karen sat at the board table, smug and certain she had me cornered. Before anyone could start, I stood. "This fence you're so concerned about. It's on property I recently purchased. I have every legal right to fence my own land." Karen's face drained of color. You bought the Miller property through Pine Valley Investments." "Yes. And just like I have the right to fence my land, I also have the right to control access to it." I opened my folder and handed out packets to each board member. "These are screenshots of an unauthorized booking system charging people to access my private lake. My lake. My property. Outside your jurisdiction. This is fraud, theft by deception, and criminal trespassing." The board's expressions shifted from confusion to alarm. "Furthermore," I continued, "here are signed statements from 37 families who paid for access they weren't legally entitled to, along with security footage of trespassing. And this," I held up a printed email, "is from Ms. Hartwell herself, calling me selfish for not sharing my private property." An elderly board member, Thomas, cleared his throat. "Patricia, is this true? Did you list this man's private lake online without permission?" Karen's mouth opened and shut like a fish. "I was trying to increase community value. The lake was just sitting there unused. It's my private property," I cut in, voice firm. "You had no right to list it, charge for it, or pocket the money." I let the silence hang for a moment. Which raises another question. Where exactly did those booking fees go? The room went dead quiet. "Patricia," Thomas asked, voice tight, "did you keep the money from these bookings?" "It was for the HOA," she protested, her tone turning whiny. "Administrative fees, for managing the amenity." "Show us the deposits," Thomas pressed. "If this was official HOA business, there should be records." Her face went pale, then flushed deep red. "I was going to transfer it," she muttered. I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. That was Janet's cue. She stepped forward, calm and precise. My client is prepared to file criminal charges: fraud, theft, trespassing, harassment. However, he's willing to consider alternatives if this board takes appropriate action. The meeting erupted. Board members demanded Karen's resignation. Arguments broke out over liability, lawsuits, and whether they should alert the district attorney themselves. Karen banged her gavel, shouting about proper procedures, but no one was listening. The vote to remove her as HOA president was unanimous. She wasn't even allowed to vote on her own fate. But her downfall didn't stop there. Word spread fast. Her part-time real estate company launched an ethics investigation after clients complained. Families she'd scammed demanded refunds and compensation for ruined weekends. 2 weeks later, I was working on my dock when a process server appeared. "Are you Patricia Hartwell?" he asked, looking at his paperwork. "Nope," I said. "I'm David Thornton. Karen lives over in Riverside Estates." He double-checked the papers. "Strange. Says here her new address is the adjacent lot." That's when I learned she'd panic-sold her house at a huge loss, trying to buy the Miller property. My property, held under Pine Valley Investments. She'd sent her offer straight to Janet's office, never realizing it was mine. Janet had declined politely, citing the owner's long-term plans. The process server eventually found her at her mother's house across town. She was being sued by the district attorney. 17 counts of fraud and theft by deception. 1 count for every family she'd scammed before I shut her down. 3 months later, the neighborhood grapevine brought the update. She'd taken a plea deal. No jail time, but 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and $23,000 in restitution and fines. Her last appearance in Riverside Estates was to collect belongings from her foreclosed home. Roberto, my fence contractor, happened to be working nearby. He later told me she sat in her car for 20 minutes, staring at the fence that ended her reign, before finally driving away. I kept the Miller property, turning it into a small nature preserve, native trees, a butterfly garden, and quiet trails. The new HOA board, far more reasonable than the last, even gave me a Community Beautification Award. As for the fence, I added a final touch, a sign in elegant lettering that reads, "Private property,